Hey everybody, what's going on? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 10 things that I think are wrong with Raid. Now, to be clear, I'm a big advocate for not being negative for the sake of being negative, so I want to make it clear this is not me crapping on Plarium or talking about how bad the game is. I clearly love the game. I just think that there are things wrong with the game, and I'm going to offer suggestions where I feel like I have them. So this is not being negative for the sake of being negative, but I still think it's important that the player base is vocal and we talk about the things that we think are wrong with the game. So feel free to let me know in the comments what you think about the list, and if there's anything I didn't go over that you think is wrong with the game, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Kicking things off at number 10, there's not a lot to talk about here, but it's stop limiting ancient shard drops. That's just, you're being silly. If you're that concerned about it, lower the rates, but don't limit the drops. That's a fun thing. It's fun when we see an ancient shard in the market. It's fun when we see them drop from dungeons. Don't limit that to the first couple of days of a month. And then we have to wait on that to reset. Lower the rates so that it doesn't happen all the time. I understand you don't want it to be oversaturated with ancient shards, and I don't want it to be either. I don't want them to drop every time that I win something or every time I refresh my market either. However, I also don't want it to only happen for a couple of days, and then I have to wait 3.5 weeks for the month to reset or whatever. So cut that out. That's a silly thing. And for any of you that, I've seen a lot of talk in the chat of people kind of, talking down to people who think that Plarium does this and calling them conspiracy theorists and, calling them idiots and, how people talk to each other in game chat. And, I'm throwing some stuff up on the screen right now. This was a few minutes of digging around. I found this on the forum. These are community managers. We recognize the names. They're both confirmed. Yes, we are doing this. They just won't give us the number. But regardless of them not giving us the number's 4 or 5. That's the general consensus, is that it's 4 or 5 per month that it's limited to. You're being silly. Lower the rates and stop limiting them. That's a thing that should be happening throughout our time playing the game. Those should be dropping occasionally. That's fun, it's motivating, and it's interesting. And, sometimes people look up and pull a legendary from it, and it makes for a really cool moment for them. So don't limit that to the first, don't limit that to 4 or 5 a month, basically, is my suggestion there. At number 9, I want to talk a little bit about the Sparring Pit. The Sparring Pit is by far the worst use of gems in the game, in my opinion. And it's also the worst example of this that I've seen across any game I've ever played. It's so expensive and so worthless that when people come into my stream and say, I've been grinding, I'm free to play, and I've almost got my Sparring Pit all the way maxed out, and I'm just like, oh my God, it hurts. It hurts my heart for those people. Free to play and just dumping thousands of gems into this thing for nothing. So what I think would make this thing valuable, what would make it at least arguably worth the insane amount of gems that you're asking to upgrade the Sparring Pit, is to let it just level the champion that you put in there, to let it just level them up to their max level. Not rank them up, but to level them up to as far as they can level up. And then if you want to rank them up and leave them in there, that's fine. But this having to come in and touch them every time they gain a level thing, that is not worth this amount of gems, I don't think. So that would be my suggestion. It's a small, simple tweak. You can't even use the champ when they're in here. So there's no reason not to do that. If they're going to be in here, they should be in here. I shouldn't have to come level them up every time I level them up, especially if I'm running 5 slots. I'll be in and out of here constantly, and you can't even just touch the top of it and activate whatever level ups you have. You have to come in here and do it, and it's just annoying. So make it just level them up all the way to whatever their max level is at whatever rank they're at. And I think that would solve this problem, because as you can see right now, I haven't put any gems into it, and it's not like I don't have the gems, and it's not like I haven't been playing a long time. It just is of zero interest to me. It is so worthless. But if I could put a champ in it and forget about him, if I could put some food in there at 4-star and set him in there and forget about him for several days and let them level themselves up, then we can talk about me dumping some gems into this thing. So that would be my suggestion. Just let it level them up. So at number 8, I want to talk about the support in the game. I know that's not really a game function so much, but it really is important. And Plariums is so bad in this game. I've been playing these games for over 5 years. And of course, I've been in and out of support in several of them. I have never encountered support as bad as this. It is the absolute worst support I've ever tried to deal with. They almost never answer you. I'll talk about me. I can't speak for everybody else. They almost never answer me. When they do answer me, it's either an automated reply or it's a reply that has nothing to do with what I said, or both. I have never had a problem solved. I've had a few problems since I started this game. One is that my referral link doesn't really seem to work right. This one worked, but you see he doesn't play anymore. But I've watched people sign up from my referral link in front of me and never show up in here. So I've tried to get them to solve that. They don't even answer me on that. I've had technical issues here and there throughout the game, and they've never answered me. And to be clear, I'm not sending them messages like, oh, the server's down, you guys need to fix it, or my summon rates suck, how come I don't ever pull any legendaries? I'm not whining to them about silly stuff. It's actual technical issues in the game, and I've never had one fixed, never had one addressed. On top of that, I've never had someone come into my stream and say, man, the support has just been great. I had this problem and they fixed it for me. I've never heard that. Everybody has stories like I have of them just completely seeming uninterested in fixing whatever's wrong. So I don't really know what to suggest here, except care a little bit more about your players. Either staff your support a little more so you can keep up, or hire people that care about fixing these problems, or at least can pretend to care. I don't expect them to actually care, but can at least pretend to care, to want to fix the players' problems, because you need that. That's gonna, I guarantee you there are players that have stopped playing this game solely because the support is so bad. 100%. So again, I don't really know exactly what to suggest here, but something along the lines of more staff / better staff. That's all I got for that one. On to number 7, I want to talk about these playtime rewards, man. These playtime rewards. We're going to consolidate 2 things into this one. We're going to kick it off with playtime rewards, and then we're going to move on to something else, but they're both going to be number 7. But this is just not good. This is just not good. The only solid thing on this list of playtime rewards is the energy refill. Energy refill should be there. At an hour in, fine, that works. I'm down with that. The arena tokens, I'm down for the arena refill being here. I'm not down for it being here for 3 hours of playtime. That's not interesting enough. The reason that you have playtime rewards is because you want to incentivize players to be in the game, right? The only thing on this list of moderate incentive is this energy refill. And to some, the arena tokens. You should be farming arena. You should be trying to level up your Great Hall. Ooh, I just became a man. But this is not interesting enough. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they're not important, and I'm not saying that some people don't like them. Let me be really clear about that. I'm just saying for 3 hours of game time, this is not motivating anybody. I have missed this quite a few times and have not given it a second thought. And I'm trying to max out my Great Hall. It ain't like I don't need them, but I get them. I get enough of them from other places. I don't really value these that heavily, even as someone who's trying to maintain a high level of play. So I think this just needs revisiting. The silver, if you're going to give us silver for playtime rewards, which you should, you have to make it more, because we're going to later in the list we're going to talk about silver, but this is not enough silver to give us for an hour and a half of playtime. 1 lesser arcane potion, 1 mystery shard. What you doing? What you doing, man? Again, I'm not saying shower us with insane amounts of resources here. I'm not saying give us a sacred shard every time we turn around. I don't want them to do that. I want to be clear as I go through this list. I don't think we deserve sacred shards every time we turn around or every time we're inconvenienced. I don't think we should get them for downtime. You know, I don't want them to shower us with an insane amount shards and resources. But you have to find some sort of balance, right? So I'm gonna put some up on the screen that I think would be a decent adjustment to the playtime rewards that would be interesting and would be fun for players, but not be overpowered, not oversaturate the game with anything, and just would be a little bit more. It would incentivize players to hang around a little more and get that 3 hours of playtime, because I promise you, most of your players aren't playing 3 hours a day. They're just not. A lot of us are. A lot of us are playing much more than that. But you got millions of people playing this game, and they have a lot of other things going on. You're not getting this, and you want this. You want players in your game. The longer they're in the game, the more likely they are to spend money. Blah 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 blah. So. An adjustment to this. Beyond that, the daily login rewards, I can't pull them up anymore because I just, they're gone now. But they have to stop stopping. There has to be an ongoing system of daily login rewards, and it can't keep stopping. When I first started playing, it was 14 days, and then it stopped for a long time, and then it turned into a 90-day system, and then we hit the end of the 90 days, and now that stopped, and now we're waiting on them to put something else so we can all start at the same spot again. You got to cut that out. So my suggestion to fix that is implement some sort of system for daily login rewards like you have in here with the quest. These monthly quests are subjective to me. So it's not a server-wide reset like in a lot of games. It's relying on me finishing it. So I'm not going to miss out on these shards. I'm not going to miss out on any of this stuff because it's not going to reset till I finish it, right? Implement something like that for a daily login reward that resets every 10 days, every 20, 30, 50, 100, however many days you want to set it up for, that leads up to something good and then resets. And it's subjective to me so that it doesn't reset and I don't miss it. So, similar to how the 90-day login is, just to me, subjective to me. And, if I log in one day and miss 3 and then log in again, I just keep moving along and it'll reset once I finish it. But there's got to be a daily login. Any of these games, I've never played a game that doesn't have an ongoing daily login reward system. So implement something similar to the quest system that I don't have to earn. I just log in and I get it. And I think that would be great. I think that's an easy solution, and I think it would be great because there definitely should be daily login rewards on an ongoing basis. Coming in at number 6 is improve the AI in the game. Now let me be clear real quick. There are a lot of ways that I think this AI is the best I've ever seen in a game I've played like this. There are certain ways where my teams seem to make the decisions and they do things under certain circumstances, and I've been really impressed at the AI in this game in comparison to other games that I've played. Having said that, there are some glaring issues with the AI throughout the game. And there are some really popular examples, and there are some less popular examples. But there are some champions that won't do certain things, and there seems to be no reason that they won't do these things. And I even think maybe some of that could be because of the coding that makes the AI good in other situations. Certain champs are affected by it, so I think pay more attention and be a little bit more urgent in fixing that. Septimus has been a problem in not using his A2 under certain circumstances in a long time. Foley won't use his block revive in Ice Golem. I had issues with the Zargala for a long time where she wouldn't use her AoE defense breakthrough in dungeon waves. There are problems that have been going on for a long time that need to be addressed. So someone at Plarium needs to listen to the community and hear these problems and get in and diagnose them. But I'm not going to talk too much about the AI. Stu Gaming just put out a video on AI, and he goes in depth. He shows examples. He talks a lot more about it. So I don't really see a reason to go super in depth on it. So I'm gonna put a link to his video in the description. So after you finish this one, head over there and check out his video on AI because it's a really good video. At number 5. The silver economy in the game is wildly imbalanced. For the amount of silver that drops and for the amount of silver you're given, things are far too expensive. And I want to just show you a couple of examples here. My Skull Crown has some speed boots that are at 15 that I don't level up because I need her to be this fast. But if we take a look, 32,700 silver for one roll. And we all know it's going to take a few dozen rolls. That's just that's the nature of it. They're hard to max out, especially at 6-star. It's going to take a little while for them to roll. Now, of course, you get lucky occasionally and it doesn't take that many, but generally you have to expect a few dozen rolls here, right? So you're going to spend several hundred thousand moving these boots up. But 32,700 silver for one attempt. Let's look at our playtime rewards again. For 90 minutes of game time, they only give you 27,500. They don't even give me enough silver for an hour and a half in the game to try to roll those boots one time. There's just a little bit of an imbalance here, I think. Another really good example is the champion box expansion and the vault expansion. I'm at 130, and if I wanted 10 more slots, it's going to cost me 2.5 million silver. Now, I understand this is long term and this is a permanent change and that it is valuable, but 2.5 million, and I'm barely over halfway to maxing this thing out. If it's still 200, I'm not sure if it's been expanded yet. If it hasn't, it should be, because we should have room to hold every champ in the game if we want to. But 2.5 million for 10 slots, y'all are tripping. Y'all are straight up tripping. So it's an easy fix. Either make some of this stuff a little bit less expensive, or increase the rate of the drop rate of silver, the drop quantity of silver. And again, I don't want it to be in such a way that I have infinite silver. I don't like that idea. I don't want to just be able to spend silver and never run out of it. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind having to grind. But the problem is, you can spend all day long grinding silver, and it can be gone leveling up an artifact or two. I could increase my storage by 10 and try to roll those Skull Crown boots and be broke. You know what I mean? If the boots don't roll quickly. So I just think it's a little imbalanced. So make things a little bit less expensive, or increase the how much silver we get from the places that we get it from. Give us a little more in the playtime rewards, a little bit more drop from campaign. Maybe let artifacts sell for a little bit more. Whatever it would take to balance it out a little bit. But I do think that's important, because right now I think it's just a little bit too lopsided in Plarium's favor. At number 4, I want to talk about the artifact system, and there's it's a little bit clunky. It's hard to, you can't really filter, you can't really organize. I do like this. I like that they gave us these drop down arrows, and I like that you can see, what the sets are and whether it's a 2 set or a 4 set. So there are things about it that I like. I will say that if you're going to make such a drastic change to your interface, and by that I mean right here, this used to be a crit damage armor, and I was recording another video, and I was going into an example of how much it costs to remove artifacts, which we'll get to later. But if I click remove, forever it's been continue and pay the 50,000 or cancel. So my muscle memory is just there. I'm not reading these buttons anymore. And now it says destroy. The problem with that is it's a big change to something that was so familiar. And if I click destroy, it doesn't even ask if I'm sure. That artifact's just gone. So I destroyed my Turvold's crit damage armor, which really hurt my feelings, because I was trying to click cancel. But so that's a quick suggestion for the artifact thing, is before you let us destroy an artifact, especially one that's equipped, ask us if we're sure. But this little bit right here is not so bad as far as the artifact interface, but it is a little clunky, it is a little slow, and when it comes time to find artifacts, it can take a while. Let's say I'm looking for attack percentage armor, and I don't care what the set is anymore, because I know I don't have another crit damage armor. It's going to take me a while to go through all my artifacts, and the more that I get, the longer it takes, the harder it is to do. So what I'm actually going to do for the suggestion portion of this is I'm going to switch over to Summoner's War, and I'm going to show you guys the system that Summoner's War has in place, so that you can see in action what I think a phenomenal solution of this problem would be. So I'll switch over and I'll see you there. All right, so we're over in Summoner's War now. You can see it looks pretty, you know, generally the same outline, pretty familiar. You got your champs over here. You can change it here and get a look at them and see their stats. And, you know, my Tyrant doesn't have anything equipped, but let's check out, I don't know, Wusa and go into, so we see his stats here. We see what benefit he's getting from his gear and stuff. If we go into the runes, not a crazy different setup here. You know, I have to scroll through and see what sets I have. But the big difference here is that if I can click manage, and now we're into the real nitty gritty of the rune system here. So as you can see, I have before and after. I have what's equipped on him. I have how he's being affected. Now over here, right now I can see every single rune that I have. I can see who it's equipped on. I can see if it's not equipped, and I can begin to experiment. So right now he's on Swift Will. Let's say that I want to see if I have any better Swift runes I can put on him. So for him, I know that I want him to be fast, and I know that I want him to have HP. So I could see what Swift runes do I have that have speed and HP percentage in the substats. And I can see every one of those. Let's say I only want to improve his slot 5 rune. Now it's only showing me slot 5 runes that have speed and HP percentage in the substats. And then I can compare them and see if any of them are better. So right here, speed 13, HP 14%, speed 13, that's the one that's equipped on him. And so no, I can't make him any faster. I'd have to sacrifice too much speed. But you see what I'm saying? I can go around and find whatever it is I'm looking for. And then let's say I wanted to play around with a few different builds. So maybe I want to take my Orion slot 1 and see what it would look like on him. I can engrave it temporarily. And maybe I want to see what Bernard's slot 5 rune looks like. And okay, well I see this isn't going to go well, so I don't have to do that. But if I wanted to do it, I would just click apply, and it's telling me what the total removal cost is to pull a rune off Bernard, pull a rune off Wusa, and put Bernard's old rune in that spot. Same thing with Orion. There's just so much you can do here. There's so much you can see. There's so much you can play around with, and you don't have to pay anything to see. Right? You can see what's possible without having to spend the resources to move these things around. And then when you find something you like, you just apply it. And it's such a good system. You know, if I want to see if I have anything, any slot 2 speed with HP percentage, like anything I want to find, I have access to. It's a phenomenal system. I don't think it would be that hard to implement, and it would change the game so much. It would make that part of Raid just leagues better, in my opinion. It's such an improvement to a game like this. So something along these lines, I don't think you have to copy paste the system, but something along these lines to give your players a little bit more, you know, cherry picker type access to their artifacts, and an opportunity to kind of play around and see what other builds might look good on their champions without having to spend the silver to do it. Because there's another real big issue that we're working our way down to that I'm not going to talk about yet, but it ties in with this. So give us something. Give us something like this to play around with, and I think that would be just one of the best improvements you could make to the game, honestly. So I'll see you back in Raid. All right, we're moving into the top 3, and to kick things off, I want to talk about dungeon difficulty / organization. Real quick, I want to talk about just what the logical progression is and what that means in these types of games. As a new player, you start off in the campaign, you farm your gear, you build your teams. There comes a point where it's time to transition out of the campaign with the gear you've gotten from there into the dungeons for your gear needs moving forward. Like, there's going to be a time where you're completely done farming campaign and it's time to move into the dungeons. Once you make that there's a logical progression in that transition. You generally transition out of campaign into a certain dungeon, and it's very obvious which dungeon that should be. And then there's kind of a progression through the dungeons, right? The way that this game is set up, Ice Golem's Peak is the logical transition out of the campaign, and the reason that I say that is because it has the main starter sets, the main things that you can farm when you're a new player from campaign that are supposed to propel you through the campaign to the better gear is the stuff you can get from here. That makes this the next dungeon. Now let me be clear. That doesn't mean it's supposed to be easy. What it does mean, it's supposed to be the easiest of the dungeons, because you're coming here with campaign gear and you're trying to farm your gear up. The problem here is that, in my opinion, Ice Golem is the hardest dungeon to tackle. There's an argument to be made for Spider as well, but it's definitely between these two. Ice Golem is a very difficult dungeon, and it starts to get really hard as you get a little deeper in. Like, there's just very big jumps in difficulty in this dungeon. I just think it's either too hard. You either need to change the mechanics of this dungeon and nerf it, or you need to change the organization, because Dragons is so much easier than Ice Golem. If you're gonna have it that way, then move Dragon here and let Dragon be where you get this gear. Let Dragon be the transition out of Ice Golem and put Ice Golem here, because the dungeon where you can get the speed gear and the lifesteal gear and some of the stronger sets should be a little bit harder. But in this case, Dragon is the easiest dungeon in my opinion. And I mean, just the setup here, it looks like you're supposed to kind of follow this path, right? So I just think Ice Golem itself is too hard. And I've talked to a lot of players that agree with me. Now, again, I don't think it should be easy. I don't want to be able to just immediately do everything at the top level and whatever, but I do think it's too hard, especially to be positioned where it's positioned. Beyond that, dungeon difficulty as a whole, I think needs to be addressed a little bit. I think Dragons is the closest to being reasonable, but at stage 20 in these dungeons, it is so difficult just to get a team that can do it. As I said, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I'm a pretty high level player. I have a top level understanding of this game, and I've put a lot of time in, a lot of money in, and I can't even do level 20 on all the dungeons yet. I'm at a level where I should be able to do level 20 of these dungeons. So the problem is I either don't have certain champions that I need. There are certain legendaries that make these things a cakewalk. You know, you farm artifacts long enough and you make your champs insane. Of course, some of them could do it then. But what I mean when I say these dungeons are too hard is that there are really no free-to-play teams that you're going to bring in here and farm stage 20 in these dungeons. You might have a shot at doing it in Dragons. Maybe you might have a shot with really, really, really strong artifacts, but these other three, I don't think that there's free-to-play teams that can do it. I think you're going to need some of the specific epics. I think there are a lot of legendaries you can pull that would make this easier, but that kind of takes out the fun. You know what I mean? When it's too hard, especially for your free-to-play crowd, that's really who I'm concerned about here. I'll eventually pull the champs that make me be able to do these things easily. You know what I mean? I'll eventually get the artifact drops that'll... I'm not worried about me here. I'm worried about the free-to-play crowd. Free-to-play players need to know that they can come in and not need to pull, that they don't need to spend the money for better chances to pull these really strong champions. They need to be able to put together teams that can come in and do these dungeons. And right now, I just don't think that that's available to them. Beyond that, speedrunning is a really big thing in these games. There's a lot of players that love speedrunning and get really caught up and obsessed with getting the fastest dungeon time and improving on their dungeon times. And here, speedrunning is a really big... it's really far away. The addition to glyphs in the game makes it a little bit more possible. But as it stands right now, there's this many people that can speedrun any of these dungeons. I think the fastest Ice Golem time I've ever heard was right around 2 minutes. You know, Chosen did put out the video for Spider, doing Spider 20 in like 20 seconds, but look at his team. It's 3 Cold Hearts. 3 Cold Hearts, a Dracomorph, and I don't remember who else the other one was, but like 3 Cold Hearts? There are people, I have 3 or 4 Cold Hearts, but there are people who still haven't pulled one, and there are people that are probably never going to pull one. That's just the way these games go. So, you know, while speedrunning is possible, I don't think it's available to a big enough portion of the player base. I think the dungeons could drop a little bit in difficulty and we wouldn't lose too much. And again, I like that they're difficult. I like having problems to solve. I like having to grind. I want all those things to be here, but there comes a point where like you have to be such a high level to do these things that I think it's going to hurt the game overall, if that makes sense. It needs to be available to a little bit bigger of a portion of the community, and I think your free-to-play players need to be able to put together teams that can come in and do these dungeons. Summoner's War, for example, I used to make a lot of videos on free-to-play teams that can farm the highest level of the dungeons, and offer that up. And those are my best performing videos, because that's the biggest part of the player base. The biggest portion of the player base is free-to-play players trying to solve these problems, and it's extremely difficult in this game to put together teams and make videos for people like that. One, because I can't even do stage 20 yet with everything I have at my disposal, but two, I just don't think that there are free-to-play teams that can do these things. So drop the difficulty just a little bit in these dungeons and help your people out. That's the solution that I think. Maybe reorganize these 2 dungeons, and then just overall drop the difficulty a little bit everywhere, and I think that would be a good route to take. All right, we're at number 2, and number 2, I want to talk about events. There's a lot to talk about with events. I think the structure, I think the rewards, I think the design, I think it's wrong. I think it's off. So let's talk about it. This event, if you're just looking at a quick glance, the rewards look okay. You've got your legendary tome, you've got shards, you've got gems, you've got potions, you've got silver, you've got gear. A lot of fun stuff going on in here, right? If we look at it, though, it's awful. It's awful. This is okay. I'm okay with the legendary skill tome being at the end. I'm okay with the void shard being right before it. These are fine. These I don't take issue with. Everything under it I take issue with. Now, I have not been just grinding this event, like nose down, going at this event. I have not been trying to finish this event. I've been a little more than casually grinding it. I'm halfway paying attention, kind of focusing a little more on leveling up champs and ranking them up. Not doing a ton of refills, anything like that. And I'm here. I'm not going to finish it. I wasn't trying to finish it. If I was to work twice as hard as I've worked at this event, I still wouldn't be done with it. Also, if I had worked twice as hard at this event and I got up to here, I would have profited 60 gems, which is just gross. There's no reason this shouldn't be 200, 250. There's no reason this couldn't be 80. You know what I mean? The idea that you worked this hard to get 1 energy refill, you're going to spend energy refills to finish this event. There is no getting around that. You're not going to finish this event without spending energy refills unless you already had so many things ready to be 4, 5, and 6 starred. You're not going to finish this event without energy refills. So to work this hard to get 1 of them back, that's not enough gems. It's not enough silver. And why couldn't this be 3 ancient shards? Like, they seem to be so stingy, so unnecessarily stingy with what they give in these events. And again, I've said this a few times, I'm not saying that I want a sacred shard in every one of these slots. I'm not even saying I want a sacred shard at the end of the event. I'm just saying you're so obviously so stingy with what you're willing to give your players, and it just makes you look greedy. From a player to the dev, when we look at reward structures, when we look at how much work this event's going to require, and then how little we're actually getting for it unless we get to here, it just makes you look so stingy. It makes it look like you're trying so hard to pull money out of our pockets, and that is not the way to get money from your players. I don't know if you noticed, I don't even have Raid Pass anymore. I have stopped spending money in this game because of the things that Plarium is doing. It started with the Foley event, and then there's been several other things they've done since then. And just their general approach to a lot of things, I'm just unwilling to give them money right now because of things like this. They just seem so stingy. They seem like they're trying so hard to force money out of our pockets and give us nothing for it. So, 1, make the rewards in your events a little bit more worth the effort. It can't only be worth the effort if I get to here. The whole ride has to be worth it. So find that balance. and be a little bit willing to part with a little bit more resources that really cost you nothing. If we got 300 gems from getting this far in the event and 3 ancient shards, that's going to prevent no one from spending money that was going to spend it. No one is going to think, oh, well, now I'm set. Now I don't have to spend any money. People that are going to spend money are going to spend it anyway. So give your players a little bit more, make these rewards a little bit more fun to go through, a little bit more interesting, and a little bit more worth all the time and effort that they take, because they're difficult. These events are difficult to finish. To kind of piggyback on that, events absolutely cannot cost money to finish. It cannot be mandatory that you spend money to have the resources to finish an event. You have to find the balance. There, as I mentioned before, there are different tiers of your players, right? You've got your whales, like your top spenders. You've got your moderate spenders. You've got your small spenders. Then you've got a free-to-play crowd, and you've got your really hardcore free-to-play. If their eyes are open, they're on the game, grinding. And then under that, you've got your really dedicated player base, like, you know, if they have any downtime, they're playing and they're, you know, they're connected with the community and they're learning and they're grinding. That level of dedicated free to play, not the hardcore even, but that next lower level of very dedicated free to play player, if they can't finish every single event that you put out, your events are wrong. And that's just the way that is. If your dedicated free-to-play player base is incapable of finishing an event, it was too hard. It's structured wrong. So work to find a balance where those players can finish, and then if your spending crowd is going to spend money, then they just get to finish it a little bit easier, and that's 100% okay. That's not pay to win. That's not buying your way to the top. That's not imbalancing the game. That's as it should be. If people are going to spend money, there should be some perks to it, right? You shouldn't be able to pay to win or buy your way to the top, but you should get some perks. And one of the perks could be you're going to finish the events a little easier if you spend the money and have the resources at your disposal. You're going to be able to knock them out a little quicker and not have to worry so much about it, not have to feel like you're grinding quite as hard. But that free-to-play player that is dedicated should be able to finish the event. 100%. You've got to take care of your free-to-play crowd because that's your biggest crowd. And you take care of your free-to-play crowd, you convert them into paying players. That's just the way that goes. So fix that. Fix it. That's important. Beyond that, this thing right here, the daily point earnings, capping what we're capable of doing in a day in these events, cut that out. Why do you care? Why do you care how fast someone does your event? You should remove this and use the information to find that balance. If you remove the daily cap, you can see, okay, my whales are finishing the event almost immediately. My moderate spenders are finishing it this fast. Mild spenders this fast. This free-to-play group is finishing it this fast. And use that information to find that middle meeting point where your free-to-play, your dedicated free-to-play player base can do it, and your spenders, will do it if they want to do it. But get rid of that. That is silly. You're being silly. Stop it. I think that's about it for rewards. I'm not really going to go at like the creativity or the diversity because it is a little bit of a newer game, and I know that they're working on putting new things out. So I don't care about the diversity or how interesting the events are right now. That will start to matter. What I do care about is that you address all the things that I think are important to me and a lot of other players that I just talked about. So that's gonna cut the event segment. I think I'm done ranting about that. All right, and coming in at number 1 on the list is probably the biggest point of contention for me in this game since day one, and that is artifact removal. Artifact removal has been a thorn in my side since day one in this game, and let me be clear before I get into this. I don't have an issue with having to pay to remove an artifact. That is not my issue. I think that's, it's pretty standard, and it prevents cheese, right? I can't just keep moving artifacts around so that I can do everything in the game without having to farm the appropriate number of artifacts to be able to do it, right? My problem is having to pay to remove artifacts and there never being a period of time where we're allowed to do it for free. That stifles a lot of creativity. That prevents me from trying a lot of things that I would try. There are a lot of builds, there are a lot of comps, there are a lot of things I would like to play around with, but it's so expensive. I mean, we're talking 300,000 silver just to remove these from him. And then if I want to pull stuff off of anybody else, you know, I'm going to easily drop millions of silver just moving some artifacts around. Like it's not even like I'm really going to accomplish that much, and I'm going to be millions down. And as I already talked about before, the silver economy is already imbalanced. So we're talking, you know, grind all day to move a few artifacts around and probably not even finish whatever project it is I'm trying to work on. So I feel like this one's non-negotiable. If we have to pay to remove artifacts, there has to be a period of time. The really popular solution to this is free whatever removal day. Server-wide, once a month, we get a 24-hour period where we can move around our artifacts for free and try all these things. Try out different builds, experiment, play around. That's an important thing for your player base to be able to do and for it to not be so expensive. There's a lot of things that are not getting worked out, not getting tested because there's not enough players willing to spend that much silver to do so. You know what I mean? So free artifact removal has to be an event. It has to be a thing that we get occasionally. I feel like that one's non-negotiable. Beyond that, there's an issue that, again, has been annoying to me since day one, and that's that in these games, it's fairly standard that if you equip something over something else, it destroys what was equipped. So let's say I've got some crappy boots on him, and I've been looking for better boots, and I find them. If I want to equip them, I just put them on top, and it destroys them, and I don't have to pay to remove them. That's not possible in this game, even though in the forum it says it's possible, and it has said it's possible at least since I've been playing, because that's when I looked it up, because I was trying to figure out, like, there's got to be a way to do this. There has to be some sort of way to get around having to pay to remove an artifact. And up until recently, when they added this destroy, which I've already talked about how I think they added it incorrectly, there was no way to do it. You either had to feed the champ or pay to remove the artifact. There was no way around it. But yeah, this right here, that should still say cancel. And if it's not going to say cancel, then 100% ask me if I'm sure. Fix it. That's a big thing. But artifact removal, non-negotiable. You must give your player base an opportunity to do this at least once a month. You know, I don't know how often you want to do it, but I think the minimum, the reasonable minimum here is once a month. But I mean, once a week wouldn't even be the end of the world, you know, or once every other week. But I think once a month is about as minimal as it can get and still be reasonable. So that's going to wrap it up. I don't want to sit here. I could gripe about this for 20 more minutes, but you get the point. So we're going to wrap the list up here. Let me know what you guys think about it. If you want to follow up on any points I've made, maybe I didn't touch on something specifically in the points I was making that you would like to talk about, or maybe there's something that didn't make the list at all that you guys think would make Raid a better game. But that's really what this is. You know, a little bit of it turned into a little bit of a gripe session, but for the most part, I just wanted to address some things that I thought were wrong and offer up suggestions on how I think that they could be improved. And that's really what it's about. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about what I said and some things that I didn't say. I want to hear some other things that maybe I haven't considered that you guys think would make Raid a better game. Other than that, I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, like. If you want to see what I put out in the future, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.